This is Gemara Zevachim Daf Samach. We're holding on the bottom of Nun Testament Bees. We're about 8 lines from the bottom. The first one line is Ka'arkoi. We're in the middle of discussing the dimensions of the Mizbeach, a machlokes, whether the numbers that the Torah gives us based on the Navi Yecheskel are full numbers or maybe half numbers, and thereby the size of the Mizbeach could vary incredibly. We like all the learning to be an incredible schos. Refuah Shleima for Gavriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva b'soich sha'ar chayle Yisrael. So says the Gemara again, 8 lines from the bottom. The first one line is Ke'arkai, and the truth is we could just pull up this picture to start off the day, which really shows us this machlokes that we're in the middle of discussing, the machlokes of Yehuda and Rav Yasi. As you can see, the height is quite different, and according to Yehuda, the width, the length is double. This is the Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that is what we're in the middle of discussing. So says the Gemara, Amar Lei Rav Yehuda, Efshar Kayin Oimin Agav Mizbeach. Says Rav Yehuda, and the truth is we could read the parentheses that the Psukim tell us that the Klayos were 5 amos tall. So according to Rav Yasi, what comes out? It comes out that the Mizbeach is taller than that. So I asked the Gemara, is that Shaykh? Efshar Kayin Aimin Agam Mizbeach V'oida Biyadai V'cholam Ra'inei Sevi B'achot. It comes out that according to Rav Yasi, the Mizbeach is taller than the actual confining walls. So anyone standing outside could see in and see the Kayin doing the Avodah. Now, one might wonder, what's the big kasha? Efshar, yeah, maybe that, what's so terrible? So Mefarshim explain is that the dictum of Tznius dictates that to be Tsanua means that, you don't do everything in public. So it would be a bizarre setup, says the Gemara, to fathom that the Kohen's Avodah would be visible to everyone. So responds Rav Yasi, Amr Rav Yasi, Valikvar Nemar, that the Klayim and the Mesach of the Chatzir are Shel HaMishkan al Mizbeach. They're on the Mishkan al Mizbeach. And from there he learns out, Ma Mishkan, Yod Amois, Av Mizbeach, Yod Amois. Says the Gemara, the Rav Yasi says, no, Hainu Ach. If I argue and I tell you that the dimensions of the Mizbeach are different, I'm going to tell you the dimensions of the Mishkan as well. 15 amos at the shoulder. So what do we see? Says Rav Yasi, I disagree with your premise. Your whole kasha was based on the fact that the Klayim were only 5 amos. Says Rav Yasi, no, indeed they were 15. Why does the pasuk say, hey amos, which is where you quoted originally? Says the Gemara, means misvasa mizbech ulamala. The mizbech was 10. So the Klayos were 5 amos taller than that from the edge of mizbech and above. What does the pasuk mean when it says that it was 3 amos in height? That means from the edge of the Soiviv and the Mizbeach upward, it was 3 amos from there and upward. So now it flips the Gemara. The Gemara says, what Rav Yehuda? Rav Yehuda, mi gamer gzeir shava berachva hu de gamer. Says Rav Yehuda, what does this gzeir shava teach us? It only teaches about the square footage, the width, but not the height. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda on the 4th line of Zevachim and Aleph, kamis chazi kayin. You could see the kayin. According to Yehuda, the Mizbeach is 3 amos tall, and the Klayos were 5 amos tall, which leaves only a 2 amma barrier, 2 amos, 3.5 feet. So you still can see the kayin above the walls. Says the Gemara, Nihi de kayin mischazi, avoidev de biyadei loy mischazi. You're right. You'll see the kayin's head sticking up, but 2 amos 3 amos will be underneath 2 amos, and that 2 amos will block the actual avodah, so it's not a problem. Says the Gemara B'Shem Rav Yehuda, Hayin Dersev Kidesh. This is why the pasuk says that inside of the chutzner was Kidesh, other Rav Yaisi, but according to Rav Yaisi, my Kidesh. Meaning, and this goes back to really what we said in Amud Beis, that according to Rav Yehuda, the floor of the Beis Hamikdash, Shlomo HaMelech was Mekadesh. So says the Gemara, that makes a lot of sense. But according to Rav Yaisi, the floor is not Mekadesh. What does the pasuk mean, my Kidesh? Says the Gemara, Lahamid Mizbeach. It means he stood up the Mizbeach. Now the Gemara flips back. Bishlam the Rav Yaisi, I know they'll save Katan. I understand why it says that Moshe Mizbeach was smaller. Rav Yehuda, my Katan. Hachi Gamar Mizbeach Avanim Sha'asa Shleimai Tachas Mizbeach and Chayshes Katan. What it means to say is that Shlomo HaMelech made a Mizbeach in place of the Mizbeach and Chayshes of Moshe that was too small. That the stone Mizbeach of Shlomo HaMelech were placed in a Chayshes Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu, therefore it's considered smaller. So says the Gemara, okay, so we have this machlekes of Yehuda and Rav Yaisi, how they're darshaning up the pasuk, the Gzeir Shava of Rava, what this square footage, what the dimensions of the Mizbeach are. Says the Gemara, what is at the crux of this machlekes for my pligi? Mar Savar Rav Yehuda holds and Chutz Michos and Chutz Mipnim, that we're equating the two outside dinim, one from the other. Umar Savar, whereas Rav Yaisi holds no. Danin kli mi kli vin, danin kli mi binyan. We don't learn how to kli from the binyan from the dimensions of the Beis Hamikdash itself. So Amar Rava, and again, a byproduct of this machlekes was, how do we learn that Shlomo HaMelech was in Kadesh? Did he actually sanctify the floor of the Beis Hamikdash? According to Rav Yehuda, it was. So Amar Rava, says Rava, 12 lines down. First line is Rava, Samach Amar Aleph. Amar Rava, Ma'idi Rav Yehuda, B'dam. Excuse me. Rav Yehuda's Maida, Klape the Damim, that even though Rav Yehuda says that the floor was Mikudash, Klape the Hakravas HaKarbanais, that the Karbanis could be burnt on the floor, but Rav Yehuda indeed agrees that the dam of the Karban would not. Where do we know this from? The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, Rav Yehuda Imer, teaches Rav Yehuda, there was one cup filled with the blood of the Tarayves, all the blood of the different Karban Pesachim from the floor, the Tarayves, from the floor of the Beis HaMikdash. V'shav chayal gam mizbeach, they poured on the Mizbeach. Shemishavir dama yishel achas mehem. So that if one of, and we had this already, what if one of the dams of the Karban Pesach spilled? Then you have a big problem. So they poured a mixture of all the dam. So now every single carbon is ki'ilu, is as if, is at some level, had the dam placed on the Mizbeach. Shemishavich ashal achas mehem, dom shal achas mehem, nimsa zemach shirai, would make it kasha. So proves the Gemara v'yishaltes Rav Yehuda kula azara mikdasha. If it is like Rav Yehuda said, that the entire floor of the azara is really mikudash, so who cares that the dam is on the floor? That's part of the mitzvah. So proves the Gemara must be that Rav Yehuda holds that the dam itself does have to go on the mizbeach. Says Gemara, maybe not. But Delma Misham, 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Misham. The Kasavar Shvicha Mikayach Ha'adam Bi'inan. Maybe Rav Yehuda holds you need to actually have a shvicha, and if the dam is just collecting on the floor from the shchita, that does not work. Says the Gemara, if that was true, it should have said the kain shtik the blood dam and pour it back Why would you have to pour it onto the mizbeach? Must be has to do with the mizbeach. Says no, maybe we're talking about if you're going to do it right. Meaning, really, the dam can be placed anywhere. But klapi the carbon pesach, maybe we're just saying the best place to put it is the mizbeach. So Amar Rav Elazar mizbeach shenifkam, and that's at the end of the Gemara. Excuse me, before Amar Rav Elazar, so the Gemara proves that we don't not necessarily have a raya that according to Rav Yehuda the dam has to actually be on the mizbeach. The Gemara continues. Amar Rav Elazar mizbeach shenifkam, as we learned yesterday. The mizbeach gets damaged. Ein oichlin beginay shiyare mincha. Says the Gemara, you cannot eat the remaining carbon mincha because of it. Shene'amar v'achlu mitzvahs eitzah mizbeach v'cheitza mizbeach achlu elo b'zeman shushalim. When there is a mizbeach, then you eat it. V'lo mizbeach shu chaser, but now when the mizbeach is lacking. Says the Gemara, ashchan shiyare mincha, fine. So you see, and you're quoting me, and you're proving me a din. Klape, the carbon mincha. But kache minal, and we know all other karbanos. Says the Gemara, Talmud Laimar teaches the Torah. Kache kadashim. Okay, so kache kalminayin. Amar Abaye asim midrasha de Rav Yosi. The ten Rav Yosi Megil Multavarim. There are three things. Misham, as we turn over to Samacham Ebeis. Gimel Dvarim, Misham Gimel Zekinim, Zevachim. This is one of them. Rabbi Yishmael Aimer teaches Rabbi Yishmael Yachali. I would have thought Yale Adam, a person could bring up Meiser Sheni the Yerushalayim V'Yachlu B'Zman Hazeh. Maybe B'Zman Hazeh you could bring up Meiser Sheni and eat it in Yerushalayim V'Denu. And I'll tell you, B'char Ta'an Avas Makom U'Meiser Ta'an Avas Makom. A bechar has been in Yerushalayim, and so too ma'aser. So ma bechar einu ela b'fnei habayis. Just like the bechar is only when there's a beis hamikdash, ma'aser einu ela b'fnei habayis, but not b'zman hazeh. Says the Gemara. 1 second, says Rabbi Yishmael. Ma'al bechar she'itan matan damin ve'emurim the mizbeach. Bechar is a chumrah that it goes ala mizbeach. Bikurim, whereas it's not true by ma'aser sheni. Says Mar Bikurim Yochichu. Bikurim teaches you it's different. Bikurim has a din that you have to place it lifnei in front of the mizbeach. Tamal Rav Sham Velosechem. Makish Meiser lebechar. Ma bechar ino yela b'fnei habayis. That Meiser ino b'fnei habayis. We don't actually have to put it on the mizbeach. V'neheder dina, and says the Gemara. So let the argument come back. V'neisi v'ma'atzad. So why don't we learn it out from Ma'atzad, from Bechar and Bikurim? That we'll see that we'll learn two Meiser Sheni, that it's only when there is a Beis HaMikdash. Explains the Gemara, you know why we can't say that? Misham the Eagle and Mifrach, because we could ask, Malas ad Hashavish HaBehem, Shkinish inside of Mizbeach. Bechar and Bikurim, both of Atzad Mizbeach. Bikurim, the Hanacha Bechar in front of it, whereas Meiser Sheni is not, therefore we cannot learn it out from the other ones. Continues the Gemara, Maika Savar, what does Rabbi Yishmael hold? Klape, the Meiser Sheni Bizman Hazeh. If you're telling me that he holds that the original Kedusha of Yerushalayim lasts forever, then even the Bechar, Afilu Bechar Nami, even the Bechar as well should have to eat in Yerushalayim Bizman Hazeh. And on the flip side, because then Afilu Bechar Nami Tibai. So it says the Gemara, whichever you slice it, we have a problem. Nachmo. If you'll Afilu Bechar Nami, and if not, then Afilu Bechar Nami Tibai, Bechar should be part of this kasha. So how are we going to learn? So Amar Avina Leilam Kasavar Loi Kitsha. Really we hold Loi Kitsha. That what? The original Kedusha does not last. If that's true, then you're asking me that what? Rabbi Yishmael should ask what the story with the Bechar nowadays is. B'bachar shenizrak damai koidem chorban habayis v'charav habayis. A bachar, the dam was thrown before the chorban habayis, and then the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. V'adayin b'sarik hayim. And in that case, v'iskish b'sarai l'damai. Ma damai b'mizbeach, av b'sarai b'mizbeach. Says the Gemara of Asi Meiser V'Yal Mi B'char. But now we have the same kasha that we had a few blot ago. That any time you have Gzeira Shava, it can't go 2 steps. Says the Gemara of Chidavar Alamid Behekish. Chayzer Malamid Behekish. That's not allowed. Says the Gemara, Meiser Dagan Chulin Hu. And therefore, it is giving us a relevant din. Says the Gemara, Dam Ubasar Chada Milsahi. They both consider one entity. The Dam of the Bachar and the Basar, the halacha that we're learning from the Hekish of the Dam, both of those are the same carbon, and therefore it's not a problem of learning one from the other. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata Dishmaya.